until we prepare for the photo session and have our guests once again seated. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the TIFF Lounge, and we will be shortly calling in Mr. Xiaogang and Mr. Yamada Yoji. Mr. Xiaogang has his newest film, Dwelling by the West Lake at the Tokyo International Film Festival. I am your programming director, Shozo Yama. Your English interpreters are Shino Nakazawa, Nihoko Imai, and your Chinese interpreter is Gu Xiaodong. So please welcome with a warm round of applause Mr. Yoji Yamada and Mr. Gu Xiaogang. Thank you. Mr. Gu Xiaogang, welcome. So I am going to be serving as the moderator while we talk to our two wonderful guests. Of course, there will be direct exchange probably during the session between Mr. Yamada and Mr. Gu. So first of all, Mr. Yamada, I would like to ask you, you have had an exchange before with Mr. Gu Xiaogang, and it was Dwelling in the Fuchun Mountains that you first saw. Can you tell us, Mr. Yamada, how you felt watching Dwelling in the Fuchun Mountains, which was his first film? I was so surprised to see such a wonderful film. I don't know quite how to describe it, but it was quite light yet very heartwarming and so refreshing to watch. I might have been too superfluous in my compliments, but I might go so far to say as it's like listening to Mozart's music. And I was wondering who the director was, and I was wondering what kind of process did the director take or go through in shooting this film. And I was wondering about the various shots and various cuts in the film. I'm wondering how this was shot, these scenes were shot. And Mr. Koreda also had a few exchanges with Mr. Gu Xiaogang, and he told me about how the director shot these scenes that I was wondering about. And I wanted to meet with the director. Then at the Shanghai International Film Festival, I had the opportunity to actually meet him. He's still a very young director, but he was quite a wonderful gentleman, and I felt so lucky to have been able to meet him in this way. Mr. Gu, so you met with Mr. Yamada the first time at this year's Shanghai International Film Festival. How did that feel for you? It was indeed a very memorable and a bit of a perplexing moment, but memorable nonetheless. I'm very nervous because my film is going to have its world premiere, and I'm also, the other thing I was nervous about was actually meeting with Mr. Yamada again to discuss at today's talk session. And so I'm very thankful to the Tokyo International Film Festival and to Mr. Yamada as well, and appreciate having been invited at the Shanghai International Festival. I was also glad to have been able to meet him, and little did I imagine that I would be able to meet him again, once again here at the Tokyo International Film Festival. So these opportunities, I'm still a very young film director, but these instances really motivated me. When I met him at the Shanghai International Film Festival, he started talking about the story behind Dwelling in the Fuji Mountains, but I was not able to complete my conversation with him. My second film is quite a departure from the first film, and so that also made me nervous as well. Mr. Yamada had come to the screening of my second film during this festival, and I was staring at him in the audience. At the Q&A, after the first question, Mr. Yamada had left his seat, and I thought maybe he was angry. Attend to something, so I had to go, says Mr. Yamada. But this second film as well, I thought it would be a continuation of the first film, but it was completely different, which surprised me, says Mr. Yamada. It is, as Mr. Yamada says, indeed, says Mr. Gu. The motivation behind each film that I shot are quite different, actually. For the first film, I really didn't understand cinema quite well, so I wanted to, it was a process of discovery, and I had this concept that it was very important to have your back to the audience, actually, in making a film. In other words, you have to forget your audience and I had this principle in mind while I was making my first film. I really wanted to dig into the essence of what filmmaking is. So when I made the second film, that was totally opposite, and I tried to face the audience because the theme of this film is the scam. And I wanted the people who wasn't involved in this pyramid scam or anything, I think they wanted to be involved. I want to be drawn into this film as well. So as I talked with the director in Shanghai, I'd like to talk about the dwelling in the Central Mountains a little bit more. At the Shanghai Film Festival, after there was a screening of Mom, Is That You?, there was a question from the young guy in Shanghai, and he was to the person, and I was or that would be a tragedy. And he was saying it would be a comedy. And the director was saying it's difficult to shoot comedy. And I gradually understood what he meant. And the director is very he's very great because he has this artistic aspect and he can make other type of films. But for decades he's been making films for audience for a long time. And there's this the real fact in this. There's this real situation in the society, but nonetheless, you've been making these warm films, and I think that's great. And I'm gradually starting to understand why you're making these kind of comedy films. And because I
did communicate with you, I could confirm that my film this time is the film that I'm facing audience, especially Chinese audience, and I've been making films facing audience in China, so that all these audiences can understand the families in this film. So about the comedy. So whether that film is a comedy or a tragedy, who decides is the audience, I think. It's not that the filmmakers are trying to make comedy, and even if the filmmakers try to make comedy, it wouldn't be fun, or it wouldn't be comedy. So I think that's the point. So the audience sometimes laugh at the point where the filmmaker didn't expect at all. So it's not right for the filmmaker to make some scene predicting that it would be fun, because that kind of direction is not fun at all. So the important thing is that audience would decide whether it is comedy or comedic. So people who are here in this venue today, I don't know how many of the people saw this Dwelling in the Fenchong Mountains. That is the first film of Mr. Gu Xiaogang. But anyway, his first film was, surprisingly, there was only one professional actor in the film. Other people were all just normal citizens. They were not professional actors. They were just the director's relatives, like aunts and uncles. So they were just expressing their daily life naturally, but that became a natural drama, so proper drama. So it was very. I was just wondering how he did that. And the next film, so this film, this new film, there's a big professional star in the film, the handsome guy in the film. So how he made the film became closer to the normal way of making films. So the protagonist, the guy, is so handsome. I was so surprised. He's there. So Mr. Yamada was surprised at the protagonist guy, but I was surprised too. And also because he made the second film is totally different from the first film, so I was surprised by that too. And that's why we chose this Dwelling by the West Lake for this Tokyo International Film Festival this time. And so the first film of yours was highly acclaimed, but you changed the style. And how was it? So I'm just wondering how much he was conscious about his style, the first film style. Probably it was not like he was aiming to make the film in that style. Probably that style came out naturally.
So with my second film, I had professionals working with me in the crew and the cast. So I wanted to kind of create a different kind of film, or a departure from my first film. Initially, I was trying to think about how to make a poetic film like I did with Dwelling in the Fuchu Mountains, but of course this new film is about a scam organization, so I had to not be an onlooker as the camera is in my first film. I had to really dig into the subject and the theme. Indeed, there were clubs in the first film, I believe, says Mr. Yamada. Indeed, it is. Yes, because they were very long takes, and they were mostly medium or long shots in the first film, Dwelling in the Fuchu Mountains. In Japan, you might liken his first film to Kenji Mizoguchi's films. In if you were to liken it to a European filmmaker, it would be Angelopoulos. I was very close with Mr. Akira Kurosawa, says Mr. Yamada, and he loves Angelopoulos' film. Very, very different from Kurosawa-san's films. But it was interesting to hear that he, like Angelopoulos' films, to hear that from Mr. Kurosawa was very interesting. Yes, indeed, we were talking about the very long takes. That is how I shot the film. My first film. We have the scene where the lovers are walking along the river, and the god dives into the river to swim the way. This is during the courtship of the lovers, before the man introduces his girlfriend to his father. And it was a very, very long tape. It was indeed something that we shot for 13 consecutive minutes. It would not have been possible if it were shot on film. So it was only possible because you shot on digital. With film, you would only be able to do a take that lasts for maybe 9 minutes. This shot was really amazing to look at. How many takes was that shot? Once again, Mr. Yamada mentioned there's a Greek filmmaker, Theodoros Angelopoulos, during his previous comment. So that film, that shot, we had to do 17 to 18 takes. So the camera's on the boat, right, while you're shooting this scene? So the guy had to swim 17 or 18 times. Is that correct? Well, the entire shoot was a 2-year process, so we didn't have to do it all together, of course. During the shoot, I told the guy, you don't have to swim anymore, and the guy thought, I suppose the film is wrapping. The guy in that scene was actually a swimmer, wasn't he? They were actually lovers, and he was actually a literature teacher who had studied abroad, but in the film we made him into an English teacher. Usually a producer would say no to a film that would have to take 2 years to shoot. But this was an independent self-financed film, so maybe that's why such a long shoot was possible for this first film by Mr. Gu. And all of the people appearing in the film were relatives and friends and so forth. So maybe that was why that was all possible. Mr. Yamada has shot 90 films, but there's probably much more that he will do. And through his work, you can see the progression of people. But I'm sure there are probably still other themes that he wants to dig into going forward. With, if you're a cinephile, Mr. Yamada would be the closest thing to a god of cinema, I would say. I've only created 2 films so far, but being here with Mr. Yamada is extremely motivating for me to go forward. Again, Dwelling in the Fuchu Mountains was such a wonderful film, and we would like to see a sequel. This was what I was telling him in Shanghai, actually.
And there's another nephew, and he's working in Beijing Film Academy. That is the director's nephew. And he made the film, so we were so excited about it. And we were saying that let's talk about that kind of story next time when we meet. So I heard that your family was excited about the film, so what happened after that? Well, that nephew had a big fail, actually, after that. But the nephew was very hurt by the fail. He was so disappointed, so we pretended that we didn't know about that. And that kind of story, if it was me, I would think about that kind of story. So when I heard about that idea in Shanghai, that is the idea of the story of the film, and now we can talk about that idea again, so I'm very glad about it. So what I'm feeling happy about is that when I talk about films with you, I heard that you like Dwelling in the Fuchu Mountains, and when you talk about the story, you have this filmmaker's point of view. And that your way of coming up with the idea of story is like Kung Fu. It's like you're a professional Kung Fu master, the master of Kung Fu. And your way of thinking about it is it's very inspirational, and I'd like to realize that in the future. When I talk about Akira Kurosawa, we were like that. When he was into it, he's like imagination expanded, and I was feeling that Mr. Kurosawa was like a master of kung fu in that way. So what he was saying was that, so after the film is completed, and then you see it at theaters, it's like something you didn't expect, like the aroma or the smell of it. You could feel that from the screen. So the director's character will be reflected in the film, on the screen. Or probably the film should be something that reflects the director's character. So we're talking about Akira Kurosawa, and tomorrow, on 31st of October, there is the award ceremony of Akira Kurosawa Award. And this year, director Gu Xiaogang and director Mori Surya were selected for the award, and Mr. Yamada is the head of the committee member. There was a Kurosawa Akira Award yesterday, but that was actually for the veteran professional filmmaker, a big filmmaker, and of course Mr. Yamada was awarded this award. But this year we were thinking probably we should give this award to the young filmmakers, up-and-coming filmmakers, and that was Mr. Yamada suggested us too, and so that's why director Gu Xiaogang was awarded this award, and I was really I was for the Mr. Gu Xiaogang's award. And so I actually emailed to Mr. Gu Xiaogang about this Akira Kurosawa Award. And I was thinking probably he would be so surprised to see this text. And how was it for you? How did you feel about the text that I sent you? So when I received the email, the text, so I sent that to the Dwelling in the Funchal Mountains group, and then I had this text saying I had a lot of text that I didn't know what it meant, and because I didn't know about this Kurosawa Akira or the existence of it, so I was thinking, what was it? And I came to Tokyo and I confirmed Mr. Ichiyama about this word, and I thought it was very crazy.
The jury of TIFF and Mr. Yamada, with them, it seems that the idea was to award young and upcoming filmmakers, but that is a huge motivation for us. And I think it helps in the continuation of filmmaking for young people like us. Kurosawa-san, although this is quite different from Mr. Kurosawa's films, but I think if Kurosawa-san had seen this film, he would really have liked it. We are talking about Dwelling in the Fuji Mountains, of course. Thank you very much, Shete. Mr. Spielberg and Mr. Lucas also respect Kurosawa-san a lot, but I think even they would favor actually Dwelling in the Fuji Mountains or your films over Mr. Kurosawa's, actually. Seriously?